The Girl Who Chose the Cemetery Path and Walked into Something Waiting. Subscribe now, if you're brave enough to find out what she saw before she vanished. It started on a cold November evening in the small town of Briarwood, Pennsylvania, a place where fog hung low and the woods around the cemetery whispered like they had their own pulse. Everyone knew about the old path that cut through the graveyard, a shortcut no one used after sunset, except Emily Harper. She was 23, restless, and new to town, the kind of girl who laughed at ghost stories. That night, she was walking home from her friend Leah's house after a study session. Her car had broken down, and she decided to take the shortcut. The long road around would have taken 40 minutes. The cemetery path was only 10. At 10:42 p.m., she texted Leah, "Taking the old path. Be home soon." Leah replied with a single message that would later become evidence: "Don't. That place isn't safe." By 11 p.m., Emily was gone. The next morning, her phone was found just inside the cemetery gate's cracked, screen still glowing faintly. The final photo on it showed the angel statue near the center of the cemetery. Its stone face was cracked straight through the eyes, rain streaking down its surface like tears. But when detectives enhanced the image, something else appeared a figure behind the statue. It was Emily, smiling. 2 days earlier, she'd told Leah about the stories locals whispered, about how people claimed to hear their own names whispered along the path, about how the statue was said to mirror whoever walked by. "It's just moss and cracks," Emily had laughed. "People see what they want." That night, a storm rolled over Briarwood. Thunder rattled the windows of Leah's house, and somewhere beyond town, the cemetery's gates creaked open. When police arrived the next morning, they found footprints leading deep up. Leah couldn't sleep. The image of the angel statue, its cracked eyes staring at her, haunted every corner of her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that it had been watching her, waiting for something or someone. The whisper of her name was still fresh in her ears, like a low murmur that refused to leave. It had been 3 days since Emily disappeared, and the police were no closer to finding her. They'd searched the cemetery again, combed the surrounding woods, and even brought in dogs, but no new clues emerged. The phone and the photo were all they had. Yet the officers remained skeptical. No one could explain the figure in the photo, and the footprints that stopped abruptly near the angel were dismissed as random. But Leah knew something wasn't right. She could feel it in her bones. Something had happened to Emily out there, something supernatural that couldn't be explained away. The next morning, Leah went back to the cemetery. She had to understand why Emily had gone there in the first place and what had taken her. The fog still hung in the air, and the path seemed even darker than before, almost as if it was swallowing the light. She couldn't shake the feeling that the cemetery had changed, its air thick with a coldness that didn't belong. Her footsteps echoed in the empty space, the gravel crunching beneath her sneakers. The gate creaked shut behind her, and she paused. The wind picked up, carrying a low hum, almost like a whisper, coming from deeper within the cemetery. Leah walked toward the path, toward the angel statue at the center of the graveyard, the place where Emily had taken her last photo. As she approached, she noticed the statue looked different. The cracks in its eyes seemed wider, as if the statue had aged overnight. A chill ran down her spine. She stopped in front of it, staring at the stone face, and for the first time, she saw Alden swallowed hard. "It doesn't want anything. It just remembers, and it has the power to make people disappear, to keep them locked in time. Emily's not gone. Not really. She's just waiting, like all the others." Leah looked toward the path, the shadows growing longer. The whispers grew louder, filling the air around her. It was as if something was beckoning her, drawing her in. She glanced at Alden, but he was gone, vanishing into the fog like he was never there. The wind picked up, and Leah heard it, faint but distinct, the sound of footsteps behind her, and when she turned, there was someone standing in front of the statue. It was Emily. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. She was looking directly at Leah, but her gaze was empty. Her reflection in the statue was smiling back. "Emily," Leah whispered. But Emily didn't answer. She just pointed toward the path, and the shadows around the angel statue seemed to shift. A voice in Leah's mind, a whisper that sounded too much like her own, echoed. Leah's heart raced as she stared at Emily's figure standing motionless in front of the angel statue. The girl she had known, the one with the bright laugh and carefree spirit, now stood like a shadow in the fog, her eyes lifeless, her expression unsettling. Emily's mouth opened, slowly, almost too slowly, like something unnatural. And then she whispered Leah's name. Leah? The voice was distant, but it was her voice. It carried a hollow, dead weight, and as it echoed through the graveyard, Leah felt something tug at the very core of her being, pulling her forward, urging her to follow. Emily? Leah whispered, her voice trembling. Where are you? What happened to you? But Emily's face didn't change. She just kept pointing toward the shadowed path behind the statue, the one Leah had been warned to never take. For a moment, Leah stood froze. She stepped toward the mausoleum, unable to resist. As she entered, the door creaked shut behind her with a deafening finality. Inside, the air was cold and stale, the walls covered with thick layers of dust and cobwebs. At first it seemed empty, but then Leah's flashlight caught something lying on the stone floor. It was a body. Leah froze, her breath catching. The body was twisted and contorted, its face pale and lifeless. But when she stepped closer, she realized, with a jolt of horror, that it was Emily. Except this Emily didn't look like the one she had seen just moments ago. This one was pale, lifeless, her eyes wide open and staring directly at Leah. Her mouth was twisted into a grotesque smile, the kind that made Leah's skin crawl. Leah's throat tightened and she stumbled backward. But as she did, she heard it, a faint whisper, growing louder. It's your turn now. Leah whipped around, but the mausoleum door was gone. There was no exit, no escape. The walls had shifted, closing in around her. And in that moment she understood. The cemetery had claimed Emily, and now it was claiming her. As the whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, Leah realized she wasn't alone. The walls were lined with figures, hundreds of them, all trapped in the same prison, their faces twisted in eternal smiles, their eyes empty. The figures in the shadows began to move, their bodies contorting and stretching toward her. They weren't dead. They were the cursed, trapped in the cemetery for eternity, waiting for the next person to take their place. Leah screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the walls, and then everything went silent. The path she had walked, the shortcut she had chosen, had led her to the same fate as Emily, and countless others before her. She was now part of the cemetery, a part of its cursed memory, lost to time. But as her vision,